Kelowna BC is not for everybody. In this basket right here, I have 10 things that I think you're gonna absolutely hate about living here. I'm gonna pick them randomly, go through each of them one by one, and be brutally honest with you about what I think. Okay, what do we got in here? The homeless, yeah. So the homeless, we have a homeless problem here. I do feel that every single major city has a homeless problem. I don't think Kelowna is unique in any aspects. The biggest thing with Kelowna is because of the moderate climate, because it's a beautiful location, it does seem to attract more transient population. So people come here, you know, they're transients, they're homeless already. They come to Kelowna. We have resources here. We have tons of resources. I used to be a frontline nurse, working boots on the ground, helping these people out. So we have a ton of resources, but there's a big influx of people. From the time I originally moved here back in 2013 to now, the homeless population is 10x. 20x. I gotta be honest with you. When I used to walk the streets, pretty much everyone seemed to be taken care of by the resources, but then the population seemed to grow and multiply, that our resources ran short. And although we're building more infrastructure with low barrier housing, we have more resources, we have more shelters that have been put in place. I just don't think Kelowna has been able to keep up. Now you have Leon downtown that's going to be responsible for most of the resources for homeless people. I mean, there's areas in Rutland, there's areas a little further downtown as well. And then you have a large homeless camp in Kelowna's north, just along the rail trail that honestly has gotten quite a bit bigger since the last time I checked it out. The biggest issue I find with this is the fact that the rail trail is pretty north in Kelowna's downtown. The resources are right along the highway. So during the day, most of the homeless people have to commute back and forth between these areas, and that can spread out the population throughout town. And I mean, listen, these guys don't really have a place to go. They got to go to their resources for food and support, but I'm just saying it can be a little more prevalent during the day. I will say, when there is big events on downtown, or you're downtown with your friend, you're bar hopping, you're going to restaurants, I don't think it's something that's generally gonna overly affect you. Would I say Kelowna is an overall safe city? Yes, 100%. And you can argue with me if you want in the comments, but I feel totally comfortable walking anywhere downtown. There's not really a place I wouldn't go. Now, certain situations you definitely want to keep your head up, but for the most part, people are minding their own business. The biggest increase I feel in crime is the petty crime, you know, the theft, stealing your bikes, breaking car windows and stuff. So if you're anywhere in the downtown area, honestly, anywhere in general, I grew up in the smallest town you could imagine, where you didn't have to lock your door or anything. I still have always been someone who locks my house even when I'm home, puts everything of value away securely. So just make sure you're doing that. Don't go downtown, leave your laptop on the back seat. Even if it's locked, it doesn't matter. Even if it's in a secure parkade, don't take the risk. Just don't give anyone the opportunity to break in and steal it from you. I know that sucks to think about, but unfortunately, that's just how it is. And next, before we jump into the next basket pull, if you're new to this channel and you want to learn everything there is to know about living, eating, working, sleeping, playing in Kelowna, BC, then you gotta subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you get notified as soon as I post my next video. If you want to keep seeing videos like this and know the 10 things that might prevent you from moving here, you gotta subscribe. So if you're even consider moving to Kelowna, BC, or the Okanagan in general, make sure you give me a call, text, email, anytime, and just know that I got your back when moving to this beautiful BC Valley. And now let's pull another one out of the bucket, the basket, whatever you call it. Ooh, this is a dangerous one. It's Kelowna's high cost of living. Now, please stick around to the end of this video and you're going to be linked to an entire video I did on the cost of living in Kelowna updated for 2024. I think it's an incredible, valuable resource. And yes, the cost of living in Kelowna and BC in general is high. And you'll see when I did that video, I go into way more depth. I'm not going to get into anywhere near the depth I got into in that video, but Kelowna didn't rank as high as I expected in quite a few areas. Now, when you come here, where's Kelowna going to be the highest? It's going to be our housing costs and our rental costs. Yeah, sure, BC. I mean, if you're from out east, you're going to come to our gas station and you're going to lose your mind. The gas right now at our lowest is $1.66 a liter. That sucks. I don't know how that became the normal. Groceries are high. Going out to restaurants is high, but what I discovered when making that video is that's kind of across the country right now. Inflation has increased the cost of living everywhere, and in a lot of areas where Kelowna and BC used to be a lot higher, it seems like the country has caught up to us. But having said that, our housing costs are a lot more expensive than quite a few areas. In BC, we're kind of middle of the pack. We're nowhere near, the coast, Vancouver, Chilliwack, Burnaby, Victoria on the island. We're not near them yet, but we are decently high. The average cost for all products, that's including condos, townhouses, and single family homes, hovers around $700,000 to $800,000 on average. Cost of a single family home, for the most part, the average is over $1 million. Now there is fantastic areas, that's why you got to reach out to me, but there is fantastic areas that you can find here that you can get a lot more bang for your buck. But overall, we are more expensive for sure. And our rental costs are also very high, even if you're planning on coming here and you want to rent for a while to see what area is going to work for you before you make a purchase, or you're just going to rent in general. Kelowna can be decently high. The closer you get to the core, if you're anywhere near the downtown college campus or that new university expansion, you're in the downtown area or even in parts of Glenmore, you can be looking at anywhere from $1,200 to $1,600 for a studio, $1,600 to $2,000 for a one bedroom, and over $2,000, probably closer to $2,200 a month for a two bedroom. Now, if you're coming from somewhere like Vancouver or Toronto, that's going to be peanuts to you. Not peanuts, obviously, that's still expensive, but the cost of rentals there is astronomical. So our housing costs have gone up substantially, like since COVID hit. We bought our house pre-COVID, and one of the great things about it is the amount of equity we've grown in our home. I think I did the calculations, 40% since we bought in 2018. So that's a tremendous growth. That's not a growth you're going to see in many other areas of investment. I'm not a huge investor, but I think if there was a 40% growth area, people would be investing in it. One of the things you have to consider with that, it's a great investment, yes, but it doesn't really help you much if you're not looking to sell, because the value of your home goes up, the BC assessment goes up, and then what goes up with that? Property taxes. We pay a lot more in property taxes than we originally did when we first moved in here. Now, when it's your primary residence, you can apply for it as your primary residence and get a healthy discount on your property taxes, but they are really high. Certain areas and certain neighborhoods are definitely higher than others. You definitely get some lower property taxes in places like West Kelowna or Rutland, but if you're anywhere near the water, the property taxes on the water are wild, unimaginable in some places, but so are the cost of homes. So if you're affording a home at that price, you probably can afford the property taxes. But yes, Kelowna is a higher cost of living, don't get it twisted, but if you can afford to live here, it is worth every penny. All right, what do we got here? We got gray winters. Now, although the summers are nice and dry and hot, and our winters are short and mild, they can be incredibly depressing at times. There's a lot of people here who suffer from seasonal affective disorder. I didn't really know it was a thing until I moved out west. Where I grew up back in northwestern Ontario, it's brutally cold. I mean, as of right now, we're probably just putting away our snowblowers, where I could have been swimming in the lake by the end of March here. So that's the big difference about out east and out west. But one of the other biggest differences is the fact that although it's really cold out east, you get a ton of sunshine, a lot more sunshine than Kelowna, BC, and especially the coast in the winters. Now you have to decide what's more important to you. Do you want to be freezing all winter and have some sunshine every now and then? Or is it more important to you to have a more mild climate? Again, this year, I don't even think we had a white Christmas. Our average temperature here during the year or during the winter is around 0 to -5. Like I've said in previous videos, we do tend to get a cold snap of around 2 weeks where it does get to -20. So it can get cold here, don't get me wrong. But on average, we hover around 0. It's incredibly mild. In terms of a winter in Canada, it's nothing. Do we get some snow? Yes, but you have to tough out these gray skies. And since we live in a valley, the clouds come in and give you this really low hanging ceiling. So it feels like the sky is 10 feet above you. It's nothing but gray. Maybe every now and then we get a sun. My biggest recommendation, if you live here, I know some people get these SAD lamps, which give you UV light and give you the vitamin D, give you some dopamine. I don't really go for that. I guess I'm pretty white, so I probably absorb more UV light than a normal person. I probably get sunburned by these things. But what I do, look at Big White, you pray, you hope, you try to schedule a trip up there on an inversion day. That's when it's gray, socked in clouds in Kelowna and in the valley, and then you go up to Big White and it's a beautiful bluebird day. You sit there, you don't even have to ski or snowboard. You can just go up to the village, which is half the fun of going up there anyway. Grab a couple drinks, sit in a patio chair, and just soak in the sun. So although our winters can be depressing here, they're shorter than almost anywhere out east, and they're extremely mild. So that is the bonus of that, but it's something you're gonna have to deal with throughout the winter, so be prepared. All right, a driving city. This is a little bit of penance for me. So when I did a video recently and I talked about Kelowna's transit system and I was giving it praise, I kind of got bashed decently hard in the comments saying that I didn't know what I was talking about and the transit system here is awful. Now, it has been a while, full disclosure, since I have had to take Kelowna public transit, but I do know, and I have talked to people who said that the bus system here is improving. That doesn't mean it's great. I mean, compared to places I've lived before, like Calgary, I haven't lived, but I've been to Vancouver quite a bit. It doesn't have anywhere near to that type of transit system. You don't have a SkyTrain or C-Train taking you to everywhere you want in town. It's nothing like that. You have a bus system that congregates downtown, spreads out, goes to West Kelowna, goes to Lake Country, goes to various neighborhoods and parts of the city. But that's about it. I mean, they have installed a lot of things like those scooters, those electric bikes to make things a bit easier for commuting and getting around. But overall, Kelowna 100% is a driving city. Now, if you live in the downtown core, Kelowna North or Kelowna South, absolutely, the walkability score is huge. But if you are in West Kelowna, you're in any of the surrounding areas, you're gonna need a vehicle. You're gonna need a vehicle to drive around, to get to your job, to go get groceries, 100%. The nicest part about Kelowna is that you can get to nature and access it so easily. Now, walking there from where you live, that could be a little difficult. Having said that, if you live downtown, you could get to any amenity you desire, and then you could walk over to Knox Mountain, take the Paul's Tomb Trail, and be hiking within minutes. But I couldn't imagine living here without a car. I think it would be extremely difficult. If you're a champ, you could literally bike here all year round if you wanted. It's gonna get nice and chilly in the winter for sure. But if you're living here, just be prepared. You need a vehicle. And if you're looking to rent or buy a condo and you want that style of living, just make sure you have enough vehicles versus parking spaces. Generally, condos and apartments for sale usually only come with one parking space. There is quite a lot of street parking all around Kelowna in the particular areas, and parking is nowhere near as outrageous as huge cities like Victoria, Vancouver, Calgary. And I do find generally you can walk a couple blocks and find areas that have free street parking. So just keep that in mind. If you're coming here, you're gonna want a vehicle for sure. What do we have here? La 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 la. Clicky. What do I mean by that? Kelowna can be a hard place to meet people. I know this from firsthand experience. I grew up in a very small town, did my schooling in Thunder Bay. I was a person who was surrounded by friends all the time. I'm not trying to brag. I just loved being around my friends every day, every weekend. You know, when me and my buddies were living together, it was like a hostel. People were just coming in and out. I was always around people and I absolutely loved it. When I moved out west, it was my first time ever going somewhere where I didn't know a soul and I had to make friends, which honestly, I wasn't single at the time, but it really felt like dating. You know, you go up to someone that you're working with and you go, hey, what are you doing later? Do you want to hang out? And it was really awkward and felt really weird. And I'm gonna be honest with you, when I first got here, even when I was doing that, and I'm a very outgoing and social person, I found it extremely hard to click with anyone. Even people I liked and that I worked with and got along well, when I would try to hang out with them outside of work, it was like pulling teeth, it felt like. And I've talked about this since I moved here, and people have felt the exact same things. Now, being from out east, I always make almost an over effort when someone new comes to a group to make them feel welcome, because I know how horrible that is when you get somewhere and you're trying to make friends, you're trying to be friendly, and it's not working out. But I did find that to be something I really disliked about Kelowna when I first got here. So much to the point where I lived here for a year, and within a year, I moved to Calgary where I had a good group of friends. The problem was once I put the wheels in motion, you know, within that year, it was like probably 10 months. I had already made my plan to Calgary. I already had a job waiting for me in Calgary. That's when I started making friends. That's when I started hanging out with people. So on my part, it was a little bit impatience. If you do come here, you're having difficulties, my biggest recommendation, two things I recommend highly. One is give it time. You gotta give it at least a year. Don't be like me and jump the gun. Because I ended up moving away for a couple of years and I missed it back here, and I started to form so many strong relationships. I was friends with a girl who ended up being my wife, and now I have a kid with and I live in this house with. So I ended up making tons of friends here and now have a really strong friend group, but I didn't give it enough time. I left, and then, you know, the Okanagan is so incredible that it brought me back here. Now I absolutely love it. That's my biggest recommendation, is give it time. But the second one is, if you're struggling, you got to put yourself out there. Join hiking groups, join gyms, join martial arts, join sports coalitions. There's tons of that going on. That's an awesome way to meet people, but you have to put yourself out there. I do find people out east a lot easier to click with, just more welcoming. And I think it's for the fact that we have such brutal cold winters that we've learned we have to have this almost tribe mindset. It's like, hey, we're going to be huddled up for a long time. We need to have social communication. So we need to make friends. Where out here, it's, you know, you're not running into a ton of people who are born and raised here. And usually the people you meet have established friends groups. So it can be a little more difficult. So put yourself out there, give it time, join groups. You will make friends. I did, but it is something I found very difficult living here for the first time. All right, what do we got here? Yeah, huge one. Probably the biggest negative people can think of when they think of Kelowna is the forest fires. Now, I did a previous video looking at the 5 pros and cons of living in Kelowna, and there was something I mentioned when I got to the forest fires is, although Kelowna is absolutely affected by the fires, you know, we had a big blaze in 2003. We got hit pretty hard last year in West Kelowna, people losing their homes, having to be evacuated. So it absolutely is something you have to be aware of and be prepared for, but this is not a Kelowna specific problem. It's something that affects our region, so I think it's definitely an issue here and could be a huge negative and prevent someone from moving here. That's why I always mention it, but this is not Kelowna specific. West Kelowna and Kelowna got hit with the forest fire last year, so it was an absolutely big event. It was devastating, but there's fires burning all in northern Alberta, northern BC, up in the Yukon, all over BC. Forest fires are kind of a Canada-wide issue at this point. I know they suffer from it down in California as well, but I always just preface that because people think when they hear Kelowna, because it's probably one of the larger cities that are affected by this, but it's not a problem that's specific to the Okanagan Valley. And although Kelowna and the Okanagan has been hit with forest fires several times, I felt that last year especially that the emergency services of firefighters did an incredible job with preserving as many houses as they could, getting people evacuated. So although it is a big concern here and absolutely something you have to worry about, I'm really proud and I feel really safe and secure with our level of preparedness here. Because when it comes to forest fires, the two things you need to have is awareness and preparedness. Be aware of what's going on around you in terms of the forest fires. Now they can start quick, so you have to be pretty diligent. There's tons of apps out there available that you can download that show you where close fires are to you and keep you on alert. And by preparedness, I mean you have to be ready. If it's forest fire season, if there is a fire close to you, you got to have your to-go bag. You got to be able to grab what's important for you, know the routes out of town, and be ready to go at a moment's notice. But they are no joke. At the beginning of this year, when I was saying we could have been swimming in the lake by end of March, I honestly really mean that. We got hit with such a heat wave that it seems sweet, such a long summer to go. I was more nervous than happy, because if our summer started out like that, it was going to be devastating for forest fires this year. Thankfully, the last almost month has been a little colder and rainy than what we're used to, but I'll take that anytime. We can wait till end of June, July, August for it to get hot out. And generally, if we have a cooler start to the summer, it's much better for the forest fires. All right, what do we got in this magic bin? All right, growing city. Now, not overly a huge negative for everyone, but it's something you have to be aware of. Kelowna is what I consider a smaller city. I grew up in a very small town, moved to Thunder Bay, which I also consider a small city, but Kelowna is a small city that's continuing to grow. Like I've said repeatedly in different videos, Kelowna doesn't have the ability to grow wider, but it is growing up. We are densifying our neighborhoods. There's going to be a lot more skyscrapers. They're never going to be able to block all the incredible views you get if you're at the top of Gordon, you're at Lakeview Heights, you're in Kettle Valley. They're never going to be able to take away the beautiful landscape and mountains they have here. Skyscrapers are going to go up. They're going to block certain areas. Maybe if you're in the Lower Mission, Kelowna South, anywhere on the flats, and you have this incredible view of the lake somehow. Yeah, there could be a big condo building going in and blocking that view. So that's always something you have to consider. When you go and look at a place or you're going to buy, you want to look what's going around the entire area. What kind of developments are going in? Is this park right next to me owned by the city, or is it owned by a developer that's going to put, or they're going to put in a 16-story condo complex and totally eliminate everything I'm looking at right now? I bought it for the view and now I'm not going to be able to see anything. So that is something you have to be prepared for. Again, I don't always take this as a negative because I love the fact that we're growing. I love the fact that more people are coming here. We're getting more amenities. We're getting a more diverse range of culture and restaurants and festivals. So I think there's a ton of pluses to it, but I absolutely can see how someone considers this a negative. And now when looking at these diverse range of neighborhoods, you're going to realize that there's going to be areas that absolutely work for you, and there's going to be areas that make no sense and don't work for you. And you may not live here and you may not know that, but I do. I'm a local expert. I specialize in relocation. So if you want help with that, you want to find out the perfect place for you to live in here, you're going to have to give me a call. Reach out to me, call, text, email, anytime. And I'm going to be more than happy to help you out. But I can't do that if you don't reach out. What do we have here? Traffic and construction. Now, I put these both together because Kelowna, it's a beautiful place. There's high desirability. It's a vacation destination for a lot of people. We have a huge influx in the population in the summer. Overall, we have a huge influx in people. Kelowna is one of the fastest growing cities in Canada. I mean, it is for a good reason, but the thing I noticed early on when I moved to Kelowna and seeing how fast it was growing is that we weren't prepared for that at all. Kelowna's infrastructure was no way prepared for its rapid growth. And you can tell that we have the main highway that runs directly through the city, backing up traffic incredibly. We have a bridge that's 6 lanes, 3 lanes on each side, that if there's an accident on that bridge, it goes from Kelowna to West Kelowna. You're looking at huge wait times, huge backup in your day. Any traffic or incident that happens in town, it causes massive delays. And it's funny because I do think our traffic's bad. Anytime during rush hour, the summer just in general, the bridge traffic during rush hour is horrible. But I see that as one of the biggest complaints about Kelowna. Which I agree with in some aspect until you go to a city like Toronto, Vancouver, or Calgary, and we are nothing compared to that. It is so much crazier and so much worse in those areas. I'm not taking away what we have here. I just think it's so funny how people complain about it so much, but I do guess it is a bit of perspective because people aren't coming from Vancouver and talking about how brutal the traffic is here. I'll tell you that for sure. And you know, with the city growing, with all the new builds we have going up, we get a ton of construction going on, and it always hits. We have long summers, so it hits early in the summer, and that is also something that causes big delays in the city, makes your commute to work a lot more brutal. Because we weren't prepared for this rapid growth with our infrastructure, we're doing a lot of widening of the roads. They're taking 2 lanes, they're changing them into 4 in some places, but also adding a lot of bigger walking paths and bike lanes. That starts to happen around in the summer, and it is everywhere. I feel like you cannot go down a major street in Kelowna without hitting some sort of construction, and I'll be honest with you, it kills me sometimes. It makes getting around, especially in real estate. I'm driving around showing people homes, and you know, you go to meet someone at a home and you didn't plan for some sort of construction, it can make you late in front of your client, and that can be brutal. Thankfully, I'm never late. I always leave very early. My dad was the kind of guy who got you to the airport 6 hours before a domestic flight, so I have that ingrained in me. But yeah, the traffic and construction can be really bad here. There is a noticeable difference between winter and summer for sure though, but again, our summer starts so early. The traffic I felt like started coming in April this time this year, so it's coming in early. and it's going to last the entirety of the summer for sure. Probably leak in the fall a bit. What are you pulling out of here? Ooh, taxes, taxes, taxes. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we always talk about BC, bring cash. BC has what they call the sunshine tax. Everything is just a little more expensive here. But there is quite a few things that make living here more expensive. For one, again, there's not many provinces that don't have PSD, but we have PSD here. It's 7%, making our total global sales tax 12%. So if you're not used to that, that sucks. Coming from Alberta, that's one of the biggest things I missed there. I know it's silly, but going and paying 5% on something, that was a dream. Now you also have to consider, we have higher property taxes here, like I mentioned. We have the property transfer tax when you go and buy a property. You know, 1% on the first 200,000, 2% on the amount from 200,000 to 2 million, and then 3% after that. So you go to purchase a property, all of a sudden, you think you've paid everything, you have this property transfer tax bill of $10,000 plus that you weren't expecting. Stuff you have to be aware of. We have speculation tax, we have vacancy tax. Now we have this new flipping tax. So if you're someone who's looking to invest, buy properties, flip them around, you're getting taxed even more. We've had this flipping tax, but they just increased the margins for it. So now it's making even less sense to buy a property and turn it around. I mean, especially here, we already have a high cost of living and high housing prices. So you're gonna buy a property that's, you know, your margins are already tight and now you have the 60% flipping tax on you. Forget about it, it doesn't even make sense. So I hate it. There's definitely things on this list I don't like, and I'm bringing them to your attention because I know they're things that you're not gonna like, but the taxes are absolutely brutal. A lot of provincial government meddling and stuff and reaching their hands into our pockets, which I'm not gonna go on my hoorah rant here, but it's something I can't stand. And as of right now, it doesn't feel like it's getting better. It seems like there's a new tax or an increase in tax every time we turn our head. So just know that, like I said, I already mentioned that there's a high cost of living, but there's a lot of hidden taxes, you can say, or taxes you don't really consider until it comes time due to pay them. That can be a huge nuisance and maybe something you didn't budget for. And the final bucket pull, what do we have here? The heat. If you can't take the heat, stay out the kitchen. Yes, Kelowna is a very hot place. I do not handle the heat well. I am much more accustomed to -30, -40. I mean, now I've turned into a baby, but I was way more accustomed to colder, very mild summers out east. And when I got here, oh my God, it took me a while. You know, I can't even say it took me a while. I'm still getting used to the heat. Kelowna's average temperature in the summer, you're looking at, I mean, at least 30, probably closer to 35 daily average in the peak of the summer. It is an extremely dry heat, which, I mean, compared to the humidity back out east or near the coast, is a godsend, because humidity is what really kills me. Dry heat, it sucks, but if you jump in a pool, you go into the shade, you're 10 to 15 degrees cooler. So I can somewhat handle that. It's when you're driving around, you're in and out of a car, you're blasting AC in the car, and then you step outside and it's like you've been gobsmacked by the sun. It takes your breath away sometimes. It gets so hot here. A couple of years ago, we had such a tremendous heat wave. It was 40 to 45 every day. Now that was a little bit unnatural, and I think the whole country got hit with that, but it was unbelievable. It was brutal. I used to drive a motorcycle. Yeah, I was such a badass back then, and it was one of the reasons I had to get rid of it. You know, you got to be geared up when you're driving a motorcycle, especially in this town with some of the drivers. It's scary. I've seen some pretty horrific accidents. It's not a place where I want to be driving a bike, but I mean, you're stuck in traffic in the summer and all your bike gear. Yeah, you could just die. You could just pass out from heat exhaustion, easy. But again, it's also something that you could take as a gigantic plus. If you love the heat, you love long summers, Kelowna is really the place to be. So it all depends on how you feel about it. So why do I live here? Why did I choose Kelowna? I mean, I just rattled off 10 things that, you know, could be perceived as me trying to scare you away from living here. But my goal is to give you an honest opinion of what it's like. I want to be upfront with you to know that these things are out here. So, you know, if this doesn't scare you away and you still want to come here, that's just probably as bad as it's going to get. And I think it's more important to make these type of, you know, negative style videos than 10 amazing things about Kelowna. I could make a video of 1,000 unreal things about living in Kelowna. I could do hours of footage. That would be easy, but you know, is that going to be overly helpful in the long run? It's going to attract you here, but once you get here and all these, you know, questions or things I didn't bring up start popping into your head or affecting your life, then you're going to be like, well, why the hell did nobody tell me about this? So that's my goal, is to try to provide you value, to make you knowledgeable about this area, so I can provide you with as much information about living in Kelowna and moving to Kelowna as I can. So if you are considering to move here, or you are planning to move here, you know exactly who to reach out to. My goal is to make your move as simple as possible. So I make videos like this video right up here, which I do a full vlog tour of Kelowna and all the neighborhoods, give you my insights and break them down for you, so you have an awesome idea of what it's like to be here. It feels like you're already living. So again, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Make sure you reach out to me at the information on the screen right now. Again, my name is Brett Boholij with Century 21 Executives Realty and the Welcome Home Team. This is my channel, Living in Kelowna BC, and I will catch you in the next video.